This is using Qri for July 27, 2020. And the agenda today is going to, I think, focus on demoing some features for enhancing the experience on Qri Cloud, namely issues. So the motivation being we wanted to generate a public issue queue so publishers and consumers can discuss, debate, improve data together, and make data a two-way conversation between a lot of people who publish data and put it out in the world and those who consume it, rely on it, and then have questions or issues or want to propose changes or different ways to cut up the data. They're promoting a conversation around that data set and the work done on it specifically. So I think what we're going to start off with, unless there's other things we want to make sure we talk about today, is we'll demo the new issue queue on Qri Cloud, and I think we'll go from there. I should be more exciting. This is a pretty exciting thing that came out of the last couple of weeks of work. So I got to learn how to up my showmanship on some of this. Yeah, Chris, why don't you take it away, and I can jump in when you direct me to.
Sure. Sorry, let me close up some tabs here. Sure. All right. So as Rico mentioned, we're going to demo today a new feature called Issues, and what you see on my screen here is just this is a demo account called chriswong-demo, which I apparently only published one data set on. I just wanted to find one that's probably not a real data set, because we're just going to use it to put in some issues right now to demonstrate. But this is one I think I used for demo purposes back in March before quarantine started. Right before School of Data, but it's a data set of business improvement districts. And I'm just going to click on it. So here's their data set preview. So if you've used Qri Cloud in the past, you're familiar with the preview tab and the history tab. History, of course, will give us a nice little timeline of all the commits on this data set, which there are 4. But right here in the middle is a new member of the family called Issues, and it's got a nice little 0 next to it. So if you've used GitHub before, I think you know what to expect here. But I think what's I guess taking a step back and talking about this in terms of the way open data is generally published, a lot of times you will end up with just an email address or some other way to say contact us with questions, and that what's problematic about that is that the dialogue doesn't happen in the open. So you can have a publisher answering the same question 100 times, and the 101st person that comes along has no idea that happened, and has to ask that question again. So with public issues, and I'll just click on this, right now it says there's no open issues, but what we would be able to see here is a list of issues that are open, and then we can switch to the ones that are closed. And these can be anything from a consumer of a data set asking a question to a publisher asking for help, a consumer notifying other users of the data set that they found an inconsistency or some correction. So I'll just demonstrate, and I'll say, okay, I'm the producer of this data set. If you go back to preview, you'll see that there's no README here, and I just want to make a note to myself so that I can come back in a week and say, add a README. So I can have a title to this issue, and I can say this data set needs a README so users can be more familiar with it. What would you want to see in a README for this data set? And I will submit that issue. It should drop me back. Whoops, okay. And this is what happens when we do live demos. Let's try one more time. Actually, I'm gonna hit reload. The issue. See if it wants to work that time. Okay, so add README is here on the list. It says it was opened a few seconds ago. It says it was opened by me. It's got one comment on it, which is the initial comment. But now any other user on Query Cloud can now chime in on this issue. So, well, in the first one that didn't actually go, I said, what would you want to see? But I guess what I want to do now is turn it over to Rico, who can share his screen and say, oh, I stumbled across this, and I do want this README, so he can actually participate in the conversation and say, here's what I want to see. So let me turn it over to Rico, and then we'll bring it back.
Perfect. So this is now my screen, and I'm sharing a view on our general chat for the purpose of kind of demonstrating one of the things Chris articulated about the real value of what this does. So, I punched this link to that data set into our chat, but let's just pretend, someone else did, and I'm someone who would plan to rely on this data. Instead of saying something, does this include a definition of a bid? That question and the answer to it might live in this chat where we currently discuss our data projects, but the real value of launching issues is for the conversation to stay around the actual data itself. So by clicking this link that you could imagine discovering via email or someone publishing in the wild or on Twitter or in your team Slack, I click into it. Oh, did you guys on the call jump in already? Okay, good. I was almost like, oh my God, I stumbled on the wrong README. There's a bug. Anyway, so I've clicked on that, and my question about wanting to know if this data set the data set, whatever that means, includes a definition of what a business improvement district is. I can come to the README, the preview of the data set, find that an issue's been opened, and the author is encouraging people to explain what might go into a README. And as a new user who's kind of flying by, I'd love to see detailed, sorry, my T-stick. I'd love to see a detailed definition of a so I'm making my own desires known, commenting, punch it in, there it is. And at the top of this, you can see that other people have sort of chimed in as well. And now hopefully, what obviously comes from here is, the ability to reply to specific comments, to upvote them, stars, and some other kind of social features that we imagine building around this issuing capability, or the issues capability. But now this kind of is all bound together, at least on cloud, in terms of the history, preview of the data set itself, and the conversation that begins and continues as new versions are published, or as issues are found and filed, and bugs are found, and data is cleaned up.
I'll take it back, Rico.
Very good. This is exciting.
Okay, so I'm back here, and I've learned that people are asking what is a bid, and I want to add that to my README, but I'm just going to open another issue for what's a bid, and just say, in case you're wondering, here is the definition. Definition of a bid from NYC Small Business Services website. And then I can do cool things like add links in Markdown. So I want to show that we have Markdown capabilities. Let's put this Markdown. The link text will be NYC Small Business Services website. So let's put that inside the brackets. And then I can also say 1, and I can do 2, and I can do 3 if I want to do a list. So we have full Markdown support. I can preview it and go back. So let's submit a new issue. Okay, so what exactly is a bid is issue number 2. It has its own link, so I can copy that. So I'm going to go back to issue number 1 and say, hey, look, I've gotten these email notifications of all these people commenting. And Rico wants to know what a bid is, and I'll say, hey, Rico, here's another issue where we talk about what a bid is, and then I'll drop a link. I'll be sure to add this definition to the README, and it should be up with the next version. And if you don't know, the README isn't something that just lives in a database in cloud. It's actually part of the data set and moves around with it. So adding a README to a data set actually requires committing a new version of that data set that would have either a new README where there was none before, or a new version of a README if you made changes to it. So I'll hit comment on that and post my comment. So now we have a nice little discussion thread here, and let's pretend that I actually did what I just described and added the README, and I'll say, hey all, README was added.
I got an email, by the way.
Nice.
How cool is that?
README was added in the last commit. Let me know if you have any issues. And what I can do now is actually close this issue, because we want this discussion to be archived so people know what happened, but it's not something we need to track anymore, because the task that was implied or explicitly stated here is done. So let's hit close. And of course, something went wrong. Let's try one more time. Nope, not working today. So you get the idea. You want to try it one more time? Let's do it. No, not having it. All right, so it should show up here in the closed issues, and we would have one open and one closed at that point. So by default, you see the open list, but you can switch easily back and forth if you want to see things that are closed. So you can also reopen an issue. So if somebody closes it, I can reopen it as the owner of this data set. If you open an issue on someone else's data set that they own, you can still close it, and then that owner could reopen it. So there's a few different ways to interact with these things, but now we have the ability to get these discussions started, and hopefully this leads to better discourse around these public data sets, and over time that can improve them and lead to higher quality. So I think that's where we are with issues, and we'd love to see your feedback.
Perfect.
That's delightful.
I think the next natural place for the conversation to go, and I want to invite anyone who stumbles upon this and watches this, is, just the discussion we're going to have internally about the key social features to build next that make this particularly delightful and helpful. Internally, sort of what seems obvious to us is, like I said in my part of the demo, upvoting, starring. What's coming soon is following a data set, subscribing to updates, and getting email notifications when an issue that you've been commenting on gets closed or gets advanced in the conversation. But if you are watching this video and you've got a strong opinion about that, we'd love to hear that. So make sure we're making features that are useful to the early users.
Yeah, this is delightful. I should point out that email notifications are, as you pointed out, Rico, they're up and running. And Rusty and I both commented on that issue, and so I was getting emails as well while all that happened, which is delightful to see.
So much fun.
Yeah, super fun. Yeah, I think that kind of closes out the issue demo, unless anyone had anything else to add on it.
I'd just like to say that the close button should say close and comment, because it does two things.
I was going to say that, or suggest that as well.
I'm going to make a GitHub issue for that.
Comment and close.
It's all so meta these days. Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, and I mean, so turning our attention to stuff that's coming out in the next while, we do have releases of both CLI and Desktop planned for this week, which we're very excited about. That will align a whole bunch of stuff and clean up a whole bunch of things and make things work a lot better. And we'll be talking a bunch and demoing a bunch of that on Friday's call. But beyond that, I think that is all the news that's fit to print for today. unless anybody has any additional agenda items. Rico, I think you're muted.
Any big items in those releases we want to tease out now?
I think there's, yeah, I mean, a lot of it is like stuff just working a lot better. The big thing are like renames of a lot of the commands. So we used to use the phrase like publish and unpublish. We're now using push and pull for everything. The big like CLI is now getting a preview command, which is new. You can actually preview, you can type query preview at the thing and it'll work. Many more commands now automatically fetch data sets. So if you do, like for example, I think in this coming release, query checkout should include an automatic fetch, so you can just check out a data set by name. But the big stuff is, the big sort of like fix is finally being able to push and pull historical commits, which has been a little ways coming. So you can now pull old versions of a data set without any sort of like error or confusion by referencing the hash of the commit that you're trying to pull. And that will let you fetch an old one. So we're currently testing that out, making sure it all works, and then we'll hopefully get that out the door. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So more on that soon. But yeah, we'll actually demonstrate a lot of that. Also, we have fancy progress bars now instead of just like printers of blocks, which is nice. But, yeah, cool. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. This is a delightful Monday afternoon / evening / morning, wherever you are. Yeah.
Nice and punchy.
I'll see you on Friday.